With over 2 billion people using a channel, businesses should be paying attention. HubSpot has spent over the last year experimenting with Facebook Messenger to determine the most powerful ways it can be to be used for marketing. In this next section, you're going to learn why Facebook Messenger is the most promising new business communication channel and how you can start using it right here today. How many people are using Messenger in their marketing right now? Okay, so we're going to see the guys didn't put your hand up. You're going to find out how to do it without any budget or technical skill needed. That's what James has promised today. So our next presenter is HubSpot's marketing director for APAC. He leads the inbound movement in Asia, Australia, and New Zealand with a mission of helping businesses grow better by transforming the way they market and sell to match the way modern humans want to buy. Another guy very well. Please welcome James Gilbert.
Before I jump into my section, I just was listening to the talk before, and there was something really interesting talking about car tires. And hands up who knows the origin story of the Michelin awards and the Michelin guide. Okay, this is one of my coolest marketing stories I know, so I'm glad that no one knows it. So the Michelin guide came out like maybe 200 years ago, and it's Michelin, the car company, that actually launched it. And the reason they launched this guide was because they were in the business of selling car tires, and they wanted to encourage consumers to drive more. And so what they started doing was reviewing restaurants in country towns and far out places with the idea that you would then have this guide and people would drive more and make trips of visiting all these restaurants. And then it really took off as a concept, and now everyone's obsessed with going to Michelin-starred restaurants. So if you want to talk about an example of like marketing for something that seems quite bland, as people were describing, like a car tire, it's pretty hard to get people super interested unless they're watching Fast and Furious on repeat. I don't think they really care about their car tire. But I think that was an awesome example of looking at actually what's a way we can increase usage, add value to people, and they really nailed it with the Michelin guide. That's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm talking about something far more techie with Facebook Messenger. For my understanding, hands up who's heard of HubSpot? Okay, awesome. Tony, I hope you saw all those hands. Marketing, we're doing a good job. That's fantastic. So HubSpot, for the few people that didn't put your hand up, we're an all-in-one marketing, sales, and now customer service piece of software. So we started out in the marketing world, then we released some sales products, and this year we released some customer service products. And our vision is really to be that front of office piece of software to help you grow your business. And as Tony said, I head up marketing for us across Asia Pacific. Now, Tony asked who uses Messenger for marketing. There wasn't many people. Hands up who has Messenger on your phone. Okay, so it's like 80% of the room. Hands up if you have Messenger on your phone and you don't have notifications switched on. Okay, cool. So more or less 70% of everybody in this room has this app already installed and will get a notification as soon as they get a message sent. And I think that fact alone is why we have seen great results with Messenger, why I'm bullish on Messenger. It's a channel where it's pretty ubiquitous in terms of people using it, and then it's very high engagement as well because marketers haven't abused it yet. I'm sure we will try, then it will become less engaging. I do think there are some nuances that actually mean it won't be able to be as abused as bad as email, but nevertheless, I'm sure the marketers will try. So why is messenger marketing important? And I think probably the core reason is mobile traffic continues to rise. And if you think about what's going to be effective marketing, you really want to be in the places where people are spending time, and you want to be there in the least friction-inducing way as possible. You want to make sure you're able to tie into their daily habits without it being a chore. And so I think you have to start with, okay, how are people consuming information. And increasingly, they're doing that on their mobile devices. And this is a trend marketers have been wheeling out for years, but it continues to be true. And people are spending more time on their mobile devices than everything else in aggregate. And so the question is, okay, how can I be a mobile device friendly experience? And when this started, a few years ago, everybody was obsessed with apps. When people started using the mobile phones a lot, it was like, oh, cool, there's an app for that, there's an app for this. Everybody was building apps, and that was the way that we thought people would want to consume information on a mobile device. It used to be mobile websites were a terrible experience. For an app, it's really purpose-built for that environment, and so it's better. But there is friction to downloading an app. Like, hands up if you would have downloaded an app for this event. So it's like 5% of the people. For the people putting on this event, that probably would have cost a lot of money to get an app for this event. It probably wouldn't be the best experience because it is, a single-use type app, and so to justify the cost to the benefit, they probably couldn't invest that much in development. Off-the-shelf apps probably wouldn't be that good either. And so I think what that demonstrates is just this issue with, okay, we acknowledge everybody's spending their time on mobile devices, and that's where we want to be, but there is a lot of friction to people providing a good experience on a mobile device. And that's where I think apps that are already on people's phones that they're using all the time present a great opportunity, and that's what Facebook has built out. And this has been reflected in the downloads as well. So it used to be there was a lot of diversity in what the top downloaded apps were. And then over the last few years, we've seen people downloading fewer and fewer apps. Hands up if you've downloaded more than 2 apps this month. So again, it's like 5% of the people in the room. I can guarantee you those people have browsed probably hundreds of businesses' information, hundreds of, we all browse a ton on the phone. And this is reflected in the download. So if you look at the top downloaded apps now, a lot of them are messaging apps. There's also something interesting about the top downloaded apps that I'm going to ask you at the end. So if somebody's quick to recognize a trend in these apps, please point it out later. But you'll notice there's a lot less diversity. People are downloading primarily messaging apps and social networking apps. The really interesting thing is people are spending more time on these messaging apps than they're spending on social networks. And so as marketers, if you think about, okay, I will have the most success where I'm investing my time, where consumers are spending their time, and where I'm making it as easy as possible for them to transact, consume, whatever it is that's valuable to you as a business. And if you think about how much time you spend optimizing your social presence across these places, and then how little time you spend on messaging apps, and you overlay that with the fact that consumers are spending more time on messaging apps, you probably recognize that you've got a bit of a misallocation of where you're investing your time and where you're likely to see the most impact. But the cool thing is, I think at the moment this is true for a lot of companies in Australia, so it represents a really good opportunity. And one of the pushbacks we often get is, I only like Messenger for my friends, and I don't want to speak to businesses on Messenger. And I think we haven't seen it as much here yet, but we're seeing a lot of volume of people not actually having that distinction. We're seeing people being very happy to chat to a business on a messaging app, which traditionally used to be for just their friends and family. And I'm going to run you through some examples later of experiments that we've done in Australia, in New Zealand, and we got really, really good results every time. So I think as long as you're doing it in a good way, people actually don't mind chatting to a business on these apps. And so what all these factors mean is that if you're thinking about how to interact with somebody on a mobile device, chat is really emerging as the central way to do that and the most effective way. Now, there's something else that's interesting if you're Facebook, and that they are not a company that has any qualms about copying another company. If they see something else working, a la Snapchat, they have no qualms about copying all the features and seeing great success as a result. They're in a really interesting position now where they have like 2.5 billion people on their platforms, and someone told me they actually bought a company a few years ago that tracks some central bit of technology, and they can just see what trends are taking off within other private companies, and they just copy the features, and if it takes hold, and they just apply it to their huge user base. And I think the whole Instagram, Snapchat really showed the world just how powerful that is. And when it comes to messaging, there's one messaging super app that really is showing the way to Facebook around how they can monetize their platform. And why that's important is, so Facebook Messenger traditionally didn't used to make any money. So they had 1.3 billion monthly active users last year. It's probably closer to 1.5 billion this year. But they were making, I think it was around $50 million for some obscure thing they charged for. They weren't making any money. But then you had WeChat with 700 million monthly active users who had an average income about 1/10 of the users of Messenger, and they were making close to $2 billion. And I think if you're Facebook and you recognize, okay, I have this community of people we're making no money from, I'm a public company, I have a lot of pressure on making money, you're probably looking at this, okay, how can we make money? Who's someone that's proven this out? That's WeChat. Let's more or less try to do the same thing that they've done. And the thing about this is, for WeChat, it's not peaking at $1 or $2 billion. It's continuing to grow quite strongly every year. And that growth really isn't slowing down. I was reading an article on the way over here, and it was saying something around, I might be getting this wrong, but it was like $1 trillion worth of goods and services sold through WeChat in the prior 12 months. And their cut of it is obviously in the billions. So, if you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're looking at that, particularly if you're getting all this grief on your advertising side, and you're probably going to look for other revenue streams. And so I think it's a very compelling case as why you should do that. Has anyone actually used WeChat before? So it's like a few people. Essentially, that's an app used in China, and it's more or less the internet. Like, you do everything you would typically do with a handful of apps here and on the internet, but through this one app. So you can be in the dingiest of restaurants, and they'll have a little QR code on the table that you scan to pay for your meal. You can book your Uber equivalent through it. You can hire bikes through it. You can purchase pretty much anything through it. It's a central way that most commerce is done. I've even seen signs of places that are like cash not accepted, WeChat only. So it's really, really interesting, and has really laid out a lot of ways that this can work. And the really interesting thing too is that for the consumers of WeChat, and I think this explains why we went to app and now we're going to experiences within messaging app, a lot of them didn't have the web before, so they didn't have to worry about, okay, I need to download all different apps for this. Really, WeChat came around at the same time that mobile devices were taking off in a meaningful way. And people argue that the reason it exists is because it's a more natural experience on a mobile device. And now we made the misstep with multiple apps and possibly maybe going down that same path. And you can see this in the way that Facebook has rolled out their features as well. So around 5 years ago, when still probably close to 1 billion people were using Messenger, it was really just for messaging. And we didn't have all the components built into it that you would need if you wanted to sell service or chat to customers. And then last year and the year before, Facebook really started rolling out a ton more features. So they opened up the APIs to chat building companies a few years ago. They started to facilitate the ability to take payments, and they really set up businesses to be able to use this channel to communicate with their audience. And now all the infrastructure is in place where you could actually completely run a business from your Facebook page, take payments in Messenger, really treat it in similar ways to you treat email now, but with a lot better experiences. One of my coolest ways that I try to describe this to people is imagine you're on live chat and you're at the office and you realize you're running late for a speaking gig and you're like, oh God, I'm halfway through resolving this query with Telstra and it's taking forever because it's Telstra, and then it's like, I've got to go. And on a normal chat app, you would just close the screen and that's it, and you'll have to start that chat again later. If I was chatting to them on their site and they were using Facebook Messenger as their live chat agent, which you can do, you can get it on your website, I could close the screen on my laptop, hop on the train, pick up my phone, and continue the chat on Facebook Messenger. And I can continue it at my own pace too. So I could start the chat on the desktop, get distracted by something, none of this like waiting for the agent's disconnected, blah, 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 blah. You could do it totally at your own speed. And I think it's way, way, way more convenient. It's like sometimes when one of those fringe friends messages you about doing something and you have you're trying to figure out something else, you don't reply straight away because you're trying to balance your priorities. So that force function of like having to reply straight away on live chat is quite frustrating, where if you think about if they're using a chat app that you already have on your phone, it provides you with way more flexibility than anything else that has happened in the past. And as well, it's far more dynamic than, say, email, where it might be like, delays in responding and things like that. And so now I'm going to run through really how the Facebook team has been going about this. So as the app grew in usage, that's what they were really focusing on. It was like, okay, how can we make this as much of an enjoyable experience for users as possible so we continue to scale up the user base? And they did a really good job of that. And once they had done that, when they announced this last year, it was at about 1.3 million monthly active users of Messenger. That's when they were planning this infrastructure rollout to really help to monetize that community. And then they started in the back half of last year really helping marketers to prove out different use cases. So we worked with their team on proving out how you could generate leads, how you could use this at events. And Tony did some work with them as well around booking inspections for housing appointments. They were really wanting to validate a lot of use cases that they could then go and talk to marketers about and hopefully get them doing more of the same. And yeah, this community continues to grow. I think it must be somewhere close to 1.5 billion monthly actives. Last year, it was 1.3 at the start of the year. They announced 1.4 towards the end. I'm sure it's probably 1.5 now. They just haven't said it yet. The other really interesting thing is a lot of businesses are on there. So there's 70 million plus businesses that have a Facebook page. By default, if you've got a Facebook page, you've also got a Messenger experience. And so now they've got the consumers, they've got a lot of the businesses as well, and now they've got the infrastructure to enable business and commerce to transact. And so I think they're going to start monetizing it. They already have, but I think what we're going to see over the next few years is this become far more mainstream than it is now. Another example is events. So, I asked before if people would scan or if they would download an app for this event, and pretty much everybody said no. And if you think about events, it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, I have all this engagement, but how do I know necessarily if the people in the room are people our sales reps have been chatting to? How do I match the people in the room with the right sales rep? How do we really get as much ROI out of this as possible, which really requires you bridging that offline experience probably into an online one for future sales. And what we're able to do is build out really good messenger experiences for an event. So someone would scan a code, then they would be able to access the agenda, they'd be able to find out Wi-Fi codes, anything they needed to know, just ask a question, and we had someone manning it during the day to help them out. The great thing is, it didn't take much time to build at all. It took maybe 1 to 2 hours to build out a pretty basic experience that gave people a lot more value on the day and access to things that it would have been tricky to give them in any other way. Another one we haven't done a lot of, but to the earlier example, I think will be super powerful, is customer service. And so if you think about that chat example I gave earlier, I think that's really a good one. I booked some flights with KLM, the Dutch airline, about 3 months ago. And if you book a flight with them, at the end, you can have your itinerary sent to you on Messenger or on not on WeChat, on WhatsApp, or you can have it sent on email. And it was actually really handy. So I got it sent to me on Messenger, then I could check in on Messenger, then they sent me alerts via Messenger, which as I was traveling was awesome because I would just get them whenever I was on Wi-Fi. It was really, really handy. I think the customer service example is one where you're going to see a lot of great use cases that would be hard to replicate in any other way. And the other one is e-commerce. So again, back to if this is where people are spending their time, how can you help monetize that? The really interesting thing is with Messenger, you can actually buy Instagram ad units that bring people into Messenger. So you might be selling whatever, like a suitcase, and you might be doing Instagram ads that are, much more visual, much better if you're trying to sell an e-commerce product. And then if somebody's interested, it brings them into Messenger where they can conduct the transaction. And then it's really cool if you're an e-commerce marketer, a big part of your tactics is probably abandoned cart emails, or what do you do when someone's abandoned carts. If you think about if someone abandoned carts in a Messenger experience, you can actually have a dialogue as to why. So maybe they were interested in the suitcase and then for some reason decided not to purchase. You can literally just ask that person is there something we can help you with? We have it in all these colors and sizes, blah, 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 and start a dialogue, and you can help address the concerns that they had that stopped them from purchasing. That's not possible really on email. It's certainly not possible in such a dynamic and a real-time way. And so I think some companies are going to do a great job of this and really see a huge uplift in sales as a result. So now I'm going to walk you through some of the results that we got from doing this. So this is an event. We used it across a bunch of events last year. These were 2 that we ran in Australia. So we did an event in Melbourne, one in Sydney. The one in Sydney is the one I'll talk about the most. So we had 900 people at the event. We had more or less half of those people that opted into the Messenger experience. So we had scan codes on our sales reps' badges, we had it in the agenda, and people opted in by scanning that code, and that brought them into the Messenger experience. And here's a little GIF of some of the things you're able to do. So you could learn about our software, you could book time with our sales reps, find out about free courses that we had. And the 2 interesting things, I think, for everybody is that of any messages that we sent, so before any break, we would broadcast a message telling people about the break, what's happening. The open rate was 93%, the average open rate. That has never happened on email, ever, I don't think, even at the start. And the really cool thing is we booked 46 meetings with our sales team. So that was people there on the day, really excited about what they were hearing, and decided to book in time with our sales team. And the thing about that number is, that's the thing that as a marketing team, we really push for our events. It's like, okay, when people register, how can we book in time with the rep so that they come and they continue a good conversation that they're having? And we've done that, and we're booking all these meetings pre-event. This is people on the day that have resisted that urge the whole time and now have decided to book a meeting. And for us, around 20% of those people generally become a customer, which is very valuable for us. And so to be able to book that many meetings from an event just through this one tactic is huge. That helps tremendously with us generating the ROI from these events that we need to justify to continue to do them. And there was no other way we were probably going to get those meetings either. If we had had an app, this was a half, 3/4 day event, people wouldn't have downloaded it. Certainly not in those numbers. So I think it's super, super powerful for events because there's no great alternative for events. I hope there's no event app people in the audience. The other one was with paid. So, okay, how could we generate leads via paid? I think there's a few reasons why this was so successful. One, again, it comes back to where people are spending their time. Buying ads on Facebook is really a demand supply of, okay, how much inventory do they have of where people are spending their time and how much are advertisers willing to pay for it? They only released advertising into Facebook Messenger last year as a company, and so there wasn't as much demand from marketers as there was from supply of consumers spending time there. So you get a cost advantage that way, which is pretty significant. But you also provide a better experience. So if someone sees an ad, clicks through into Messenger, and say you're trying to generate a lead or a sale and it doesn't happen, you can re-engage that person in the next 24 hours. So they give you half the information and they get halfway through a sale, you can ask them to complete it, ask them if they have any questions, hopefully resuscitate that conversion. But if someone clicks an ad and goes to a landing page and then leaves, you've got nothing. Like, you're not able to re-engage that person at all. So I think not only in the initial conversion is it more effective, but your ability to nurture people where they don't convert initially it presents a really good opportunity that doesn't exist in any other way. And the other one is, we ran a test where of a lot of our email nurturing, if we're offering content or things like that, we would also offer the person an option to download it via Messenger. And this really just comes back to, when I check my email, probably most people, you often do it in the morning, you often do it on your mobile. If you're directing somebody to a website to download something or to read something, it's often not a great experience. But if you can do that in Messenger, it's probably far more engaging. It's built for mobile. And again, we got really great results there. Multiple, 7 times more effective at generating marketing qualified leads than just a straight email, which is pretty massive. This is one thing that, as we started experimenting with Messenger, so the initial goal was, okay, how can we generate leads without someone coming to our website? And we were able to do that. But then we very quickly realized an issue where it's like, okay, how do we know we don't already have that lead in our system? Like, we don't want somebody to have to give us 10 bits of information if we already have them. We'd much rather just give them the content straight away. And so we worked internally with our web team and built a connection with our CRM where we'd ask for your email address first. We'd look that up in our CRM, and if you already existed in our CRM, we wouldn't ask you any other information. We would just register you for the event, give you the content, whatever it is. And that was the initial use case, but then there were others that were really interesting, where those 47 meetings at our event, often a lot of those people had been chatting to a salesperson at one stage or another, and say they were a corporate business and they've been chatting to one of our corporate sales reps. We really want them at the event to book a meeting with the rep that they've been chatting to in the past, not with somebody overseas or somebody that's in the room but doesn't have the expertise to really help them. And so what we were able to do when booking those meetings was, again, ask for email address, and then we would pull in a link to the calendar of the salesperson that they'd last been talking to, and that helped make sure that every meeting was hopefully a continuation of a conversation that had already been happening and would be far more powerful. The really cool thing for everybody here is we actually, as a result of the work we were doing, our head of strategy bought the company that we were using for all this, and they just released a free product called Conversations earlier this month, which helps everybody do this, which I think is super, super powerful, because as you're having more and more conversations across multiple channels, it becomes a real nightmare to manage. I don't know about you, but like, one of my worst customer experiences when I go to companies and I have to give them a war and peace of information every single time. They just can't look up something simple and then we get straight to the point. Conversations was really built to help companies do that. And it's free, so that's always nice. And I think I've just been chatting about Facebook Messenger, but WhatsApp this year opened up their APIs. They're going through a bit of a rollout at the moment. I can see very soon that WhatsApp will be built out very similar to Messenger in terms of infrastructure and enabling businesses to communicate on it. And there's more and more apps where this will be true. Did anybody notice on that initial slide something interesting about the top downloaded apps? I think I heard rumors. Facebook owns them all. Like, Facebook owns bang, bang. This is not that big. It's pretty big, but not that big. They own that. They own that. They own that. They own that. They don't own that, but that's only in China, really. So if you're going to make a bet, or if you accept that messaging is going to be hugely important, if you're going to make a bet on a platform, Facebook's really the platform. And I think what's fascinating and scary is they have such good ad targeting that not only do they have the platform where users are spending their time, but they know everything about us. So if you're quite good at your ad targeting, you can make sure you're showing your ads to exactly the right person, and then in a channel where they're already spending a ton of time. And yeah, they're not slowing down anytime soon, really. They're doing quite well. So it's probably $1.5 billion now. I need to update this. This is probably also about 900 million. And the thing about Instagram, as I said earlier, is you can buy Instagram ad units that bring you into Messenger. So when you're thinking about Messenger, it's not just the Messenger audience, it's really the Messenger audience plus the Instagram audience. And then they've got WhatsApp that they're rolling out more and more of this functionality to as well. If you want an example of what this could look like, if you go to my Twitter feed, which is @JATGilbert, I've got a link there you can click, and you're able to download any slides from speaking gigs that I've done. You're able to chat to someone from HubSpot or chat to me. And I think, again, this is an example of me coming and speaking to an audience. I've had examples where somebody has done this, and then the way the slides are stored, I get analytics on that I can then send to sales reps, and I can be like, hey, Frank that you've been chatting to came to my talk the other day and is loving the slides. Like, you should probably reach out to him about some of the stuff we're doing around messaging and how you could help. Again, there's no good alternative for me to do this in any other way. So I think that offline to online experience and how you can incorporate this not only for events, but speaking or really anything can be very powerful. And that's all I've got, Tony.
Okay, we've got time for a last few questions, so hopefully you guys are fired up for the last part before we wrap up. Very interesting presentation, mate, and obviously exciting about everything that's happening with Facebook Messenger. And HubSpot are doing a lot around freemium products, because you just mentioned Conversations is free.
Yeah.
Maybe just a quick talk to that so people can actually get in and deep dive on some of the stuff that you guys do for free.
Yeah, so the reason we did that was when the company started, we really had an ethos of we want to add value before we extract value. And when we started was really at the dawn of online marketing. And so the way we did that was providing lots of free content, lots of free certifications. And our hypothesis was if we helped marketing and salespeople do their job better, invariably at some stage they will need to buy software. Hopefully that means we've built up trust that they consider us a thought leader and consider our software valuable, and we'll be someone that they consider. And that was true for a very long time, and I think still is true. But then increasingly we saw this shift that people actually want to get into products, and the way they want to get value is through products. And so the company made a big decision that instead of only having software that is reasonably expensive, we should also offer versions of that software for free, and then also at a very low price, so that people can start to get value from the software before they make a bigger commitment. And so now we have free marketing software, we have free sales software with our free CRM. You'll probably see it across everything that we do, that we offer a free version, and then our idea is to grow with you. So then we have paid versions that, as your company grows, provide more features and functionality and hopefully help you.
Fantastic, and of course with data that you guys have, you can learn how people are using that software and then be able to put it back into the paid stuff, which is really good. Question down the end there, please.
I've seen quite a lot of businesses, when I comment, then they send me the messenger, which is really great. But I had a question, like when I build ads in Facebook, there's a placement option for messenger inbox, but I really am puzzled with what that is because I don't ever see people's visual ads in there. Can you explain how that part works?
I think that is a terrible decision by Facebook. So I have seen that ad pop up in my inbox, and the way it works is, so I'll have like my 3 top conversations, then an ad, then more conversations. And the idea is I would click that ad in Messenger. And the reason Facebook came out with it was they said, we're an advertising company. If we're looking to monetize something, we'll do it by advertising. And so when they were looking at Messenger, they were like, we'll do it by advertising. I'm pretty sure that will go away with time. Like, I think it's a really poor performing ad unit. The one that's more interesting is you can do like newsfeed ads where the destination is Messenger. And so it might be like, book a last minute Euro trip, blah, 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 with KOM. You click on the ad, it brings you into Messenger, and then it starts a conversation with one of their like travel agents. So as a destination, I think it's better, but not, yeah.
So would that be like send message? That's what the button you'd choose
exactly
for that ad?
Yeah.
Yep. And James, today is brought to you by KLM, if you hadn't noticed that. But
I'll take the free plug.
I'm just going to, a final question then from me is just in terms of, obviously Motion AI, which was purchased by HubSpot and now sort of driving conversations. What about if people want to get started on chatbot? What kind of software would they use that's available now? Things like Chat Fuel, ManyChat. What's your experience on the easiest one for people to use if they want to build a chatbot?
I think ManyChat is great. I think it's $30 a month for their pro account maybe. They have an integration with our free CRM as well. That's one I used to use. That's how we got started. I got started playing around with one called Chat Fuel, but they're very straightforward. You see all this and it sounds like it might be hard to set up, but I guarantee everybody in this room, if they spend an hour playing with either Chat Fuel or ManyChat, they would be able to build a pretty basic experience within that hour. So I'd go ManyChat. That's my opinion.
ManyChat. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, from HubSpot, please thank James Gilbert.